įtraukti ir savivaldą, nes yra galybė pavyzdžių, kur savivaldybėse įvairios vietinės organizacijos labai intensyviai kuria tą aktyvų gyvenimą, įtraukia visus vyresnio amžiaus žmonės ir tas lemia, kad tos bendruomenės yra labai gyvos ir jos tą savo žinią skleidžia, bet nepakankamai. Todėl nusprendėm, kad jei renginiai tęstųsi visą savaitę ir būtų platesnės apimties per visą Lietuvą, tai parodytų, kiek gyvos tos organizacijos, kad, tarsi iš Vilniaus atrodo, kad tų organizacijų yra tik pavienės arba užsiima tai vieną, tai kitą veiklą, o iš tikrųjų jos daro labai didelius darbus ir moko, ir dalyvauja, ir prisideda, ir organizuoja, ir telkia bendruomenės, kas iš tikrųjų yra labai svarbu. Todėl tas užmatymas matyti platesnį vaizdą per visą šalį iš tikrųjų labai pasiteisino. Labai džiaugiamės, kad savivaldybės atsiliepia ir tų veiklų pačių įvairiausių. Ir labai paprastų, ir sudėtingesnių. Haloterapija arba mokymas plaukti, šokiai įprasti, kad atrodo nedideli renginiai, bet jie labai telkiantys bendruomenę. Ir rodantis tam tikrus pavyzdžius ir kitoms savivaldybėms. Tai tikimės, pradėję šiemet nuo 45 savivaldybių, tikimės tokio visapimančio įsitraukimo ir kitąmet, ko gero, visos savivaldybės bus įsitraukusios ir tuos žmonės iš tikrųjų sutelks dar didesnėm veiklom.
Dar norėčiau paklausti šitos veiklos, kaip jos yra finansuojamos, kas skiria savivaldybės ar ministerija?
Savivaldybės pačios organizuoja. Čia tiesiog buvo kvietimas savivaldybėm prisidėti prie šitos savaitės ir pasiūlyti tai, ką jie gali arba turi geriausio, bet lygiai taip pat įtraukiant ir bendruomenės. Tai kažkokios veiklos tiesiog nemokamas. Tiesiog kvietimas ateiti, prisidėti ir sudalyvauti. Kitos tiesiog yra kažkiek prisideda savivaldybė. Jau tai, kad bendruomenės gyvuoja tose savivaldybėse, tai yra ir tam tikras didžiulis savivaldybės įnašas. Nes dar yra tokių savivaldybių, kurios tiesiog neranda net ir patalpų, kur tos vyresnio amžiaus bendruomenės galėtų rinktis. Tai vien patalpų suteikimas tai jau yra didžiulis prisidėjimas. Ir natūralu, pradėję nuo vieno žingsnio, vėliau jie gali eiti jau su kitais žingsniais, plėstis, įtraukti ir tas bendruomeniškumas jisai plečiasi. Jis toks kaip užkratas gerąja prasme, plinta ir įtraukia vis daugiau vyresnių žmonių. Ponia Liza, mačiau, norėjo reflektuoti. Gerai, the question was about
municipalities or the government finances the activities in the
Ar turėtume klausimą?
Na, gal nebent galėtumėte skirti
Mikrofoną.
Galbūt galėtumėte skirti kažkokių įspūdingesnių tų veiklų ar kažkas, kas manote vertas dėmesio, kokios naujovės būtent šią savaitę bus.
Tai matau, turim sąrašą gražesnių pavyzdžių, kad bus seniorų naktis šokiai Biržuose, mankštos Jonavos baseine, nemokamos plaukimo pamokos Kretingoje, kino seansai bus Kaune, Utenoje, Rokiškyje, Varėnoje, daugelį kitų miestų, taip pat haloterapijos ir hidroterapijos seansai Vilniuje bei žygis su šiaurietiškomis lazdomis Švenčionių rajone. Tai gražus pavyzdžiai tikrai ir jų yra daugybė ir daug daugiau.
Na ką, tada ačiū ir kviečiu individualiem pokalbiam, dar turime iki konferencijos šiek tiek laiko ir galimybę pakalbinti tiek ministrą, tiek ponę Vorf atskirai. Ačiū labai susirinkusiems.
Su technologijom, kurias pasiėmėte, tai yra vertimo ausinėmis. Taip kad jeigu norėsite klausytis pranešėjo ir kad vertimas būtų į lietuvių kalbą, jums reikia įsirinkti pirmąjį kanalą. Jeigu jūs norite išgirsti, kas kalbama scenoje lietuviškai vertimą į anglų kalbą, reikia kanalą perjungti į skaičių numeris 2. So I suppose you already have the translation and you're on channel number 2, yes? So we'll taigi mes netrukus pradėsime šią konferenciją, pradedam tuoj pat. socialinės apsaugos ir darbo ministerijos konferencija Amžiui draugiškos bendruomenės. Ir šiandien čia stovėdamas prieš jūs jaučiu, kad turiu teisę stovėti prieš jūs. Ne vien dėl to, kad turiu pakankamai žilų plaukų, bet ir dėl to, kad ši tema man visą laiką buvo aktuali, įdomi, rūpinti. Nes vienas didžiausių įspūdžių, kurį esu patyręs, kai Lietuva tapo nepriklausoma ir jau buvo galima keliauti, užsienio šalyse aš pastebėjau seniorus, kurie savaitgaliais vaikšto mieste susikibę už rankučių, kurie sėdi kavinėse ir gurkšnoja kavą, kurie šoka tango gatvėje, kai muzikantai groja. Ir tai man buvo tuo metu protu dar sunkiai suvokiama, nes Lietuvoje tokių pavyzdžių buvo vienetai. Ir šiandien aš tikrai noriu pasidžiaugti, matydamas kuo toliau, tuo daugiau Lietuvoje tokių nuostabių, puikių pavyzdžių, kad mes kuo toliau, tuo labiau rūpinamės savo ir senjorais. Jo labiau, kad ir šiandien prasideda senjorų savaitė Palangoje. Taip, kad jeigu turėsit galimybę, dar ir ten galite apsilankyti. Na, bet šiandien čia jūsų laukia tikrai turininga programa, kurioje išgirsite tarptautinių ir vietos ekspertų įžvalgas ir praktinius pavyzdžius. Kaip bendruomenės gali tapti draugiškesnės vyresnio amžiaus žmonėms. Gyventojų bendruomenės senėjimas yra ne tik tai faktas, bet be abejo tai yra ir iššūkis, kurį reikia žvelgti strategiškai. Amžiui draugiškos bendruomenės, kurios skatina socialinį įsitraukimą, prieinamą infrastruktūrą ir palaiko vyresnio amžiaus žmonių savarankiškumą, tampa kuo toliau ne vien tik tai svarbesnės, bet ir be abejo labiau geidžiamos. Šio renginio metu mes visi turėsime galimybę aptarti, kaip Lietuvoje ir kitose šalyse plėtojamos įvairios iniciatyvos, skirtos be abejo vyresnio amžiaus žmonių gerovei. Taip pat visi kartu ieškosime būdų, kaip dar labiau skatinti jų pilnavertį socialinį įsitraukimą ir sukurti sąlygas oriam, sveikam ir, kas ypatingai svarbu, savarankiškam gyvenimui. Kviečiu visus aktyviai dalyvauti. Ką tai reiškia? Tai reiškia, kad jeigu pranešėjo metu jūs pajaučiate, kad turite klausimą, nenutildykite to klausimo, o tikrai užduokime jį iš karto po pranešimo. Jeigu jūs stebite šią transliaciją YouTube kanale, darykite lygiai tą patį. Rašykite komentaruose klausimus ir mes pasistengsime į juos visus atsakyti. Na, o dabar kviečiu Lietuvos socialinės apsaugos ir darbo ministrą Vytautą Šilinską tarti sveikinimo žodį.
Labadiena visi. Džiaugiuosi jūs matydamas ir noriu pasidžiaugti ir pasidalinti keliais dalykais. Vakar su žmona šventėme mūsų 12 metų metinę sutuoktuvių ir pagalvojau, kad šiaip mūsų bendras tikslas yra tapti tais gražiais senjorais, kur irgi minėjo, kur kartu būsime dar ir po daugybės metų susikibę rankomis ir žiūrėsime, nežinau, ar filmą, ar kaip anūkai žaidžia. Tai man nėra nieko gražiau, kaip senjorai besidžiaugiantis gyvenimą. Ir ką mes žinome, kad ir Harvardo tyrimai, čia jau nesmeninė patirtis, o mokslas sako, kad niekas taip nesuteikia laimės, kaip žmogiškas ryšys su žmonėmis ir žmogiškas santykis. Tai labai džiaugiuosi, kad einame tą kryptimį, kad grįžtame, įsisukėme į seniorus ir juos vis labiau įtraukiame. Pavyko ministerijos seniorų tarybai kurti, kur kalbame su seniorais apie seniorus, ką galime kartu padaryti. Žinome, kad jau yra socialinis receptas, nes vėlgi laimė, goda, bendravimas ir socialumas buvimas kartu, kur net gydytojas gali išrašyti socialinį receptą, kad nueiti reikia pabendrauti. Tai džiaugiamės, kad kartu su savivalda, kur yra arčiausiai žmonių, net 45 savivaldybės įsitraukia ir organizuoja renginius seniorams. Tai nuo kino filmų peržiūros iki baseinų, žygių, naktinių šokių netgi. Tai labai džiaugiamės, tikimės, kad tai bus nuolatinė tradicija, kad įsitrauks visos savivaldybės, nes seniorai yra svarbus, senjorai užaugino visą Lietuvą, tai, ką mes dabar turime, ir mes turime gerbti, rūpintis ir mylėtis ir paskatinti ir paraginti džiaugtis gyvenimu. Tai ačiū Jums visiems, kurie šiandien susirinkote ir tikiuosi, kad rasime kartu diskusijose, kaip mums visiems kartu tapti dar įtraukesnė bendruomenė, dar įtraukesnė Lietuva ir draugiškesnė visiems žmonėms. Ačiū Jums.
Dėkojame, ministrė. Ir jeigu tokios programos įgaus pagreitį, gerbiamas ministrė, jūs neturėsit laiko stebėti anūkų, jūs žaisit su anūkais pats. To turbūt mes visi kartu ir siekiame tokiamis programomis. Ir beje, šiandien labam ryte pasakė pavyzdį, kokios išskylančios dažniausios problemos seniorams, kurie ateina į šokius. Nepatikėsit, kokia, kaip manote, yra didžiausia problema seniorams, kurie ateina į šokius? Ką apsirengti, turbūt pakankamai nesudėtinga problema, galbūt turint omeny, kiek gali būti sukaupta drabužių, bet žinokit, problema vyrų trūksta. Sakė, trūksta šokančių vyrų ir normalios muzikos. Tai pasakė po, kurie 70 metų. Tai manau, kad reikia atskiros radijo stoties ir vyrai reikia drąsiau žengti į šokių aikštelę. To ir linkime. Nu, dabar atėjo metas pradėti mūsų šios dienos konferenciją. Taigi, pirmojo pranešimo tema – bendruomenės visoms amžiaus grupėms vietos veiksmai siekiant pasaulinės vizijos. Ir ją pristatys Jungtinių tautų Europos ekonominės komisijos statistikos skyriaus gyventojų padalinio vadovė Liza Worth. Liza Worth savo darbais prisideda prie politinio dialogo apie įvairius demografinių pokyčių aspektus visame regione. Ypač daug dėmesio skirdama senėjimui. Viena iš Lizos Worth padalinio veiklų tarp vyriausybinės nuolatinės senėjimo darbo grupės koordinavimas, kuris apima metodinę pagalbą valstybėms narėms įgyvendinant Madrido tarptautinį senėjimo veiksmų planą ir jo regioninę įgyvendinimo strategiją. Prie Jungtinių tautų Europos ekonominės komisijos gyventojų padalinio Liza Worth prisijungė 2017 metais po 4 metų darbo pasaulio sveikatos organizacijoje, kur koordinavo ir plėtojo pasaulinį draugiškų senatvei miestų ir bendruomenių tinklą bei platformą pavadinimu Senatvei draugiškas pasaulis. Taigi, Liza, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure to be here. Excellency, distinguished guests, participants both in the room today and online. And it's my great pleasure to be able to contribute a little bit of the global picture and backdrop to the vision of creating age-friendly communities, which is the real topic of today's conference. But before we dive into practical measures at the local level, I'd like to give you just a bit of background on where the vision comes from over almost half a century now of international action on aging in the United Nations, in the international community of countries. And now, as you heard today, or starting today and the whole week in Lithuania, but across the world we're celebrating the International Day of Older Persons, which is happening every year on the 1st of October. That International Day was introduced in 1992 to draw attention really to the situation of older persons and to value and acknowledge their contributions. But every year it's also an opportunity to raise awareness around the issues and concerns older people have, their right to age with dignity, the need to combat ageism, to combat elder abuse, and to really create conditions for social inclusion. And age-friendly communities are communities for all ages. It's about creating good places in which we grow up and in which we grow old, and in which we can live together well across generations and in solidarity and mutual support of each other. Now, let me just give you very briefly an overview of the international framework of aging that started almost half a century ago, over 40 years ago, with the first World Assembly on Aging that took place in Vienna. The outcome document of that conference that really provided a first-time intergovernmental platform to discuss aging challenges for the world, because already back then, already almost half a century ago, it was clear that the demographic changes that are taking place will significantly transform our societies, with a growing number of older persons thanks to growing longevity and falling birth rates. So that first convening globally also led to a first international action plan on aging. And following that, there was a decade really of key milestones, so to speak, with the International Day for Older Persons being proclaimed, but also the United Nations principles for older persons that really drew attention to the human rights of independence, participation, care, self-fulfillment and dignity that were adopted in 1991. Later on in that decade, there was also an international year that was organized really to raise awareness through a big number of events across the world and projects and activities, where the slogan "Towards a Society for All Ages," which is really the vision towards which we're still working today, was coined. Following that, over 20 years ago, was the second World Assembly on Aging that took place in Madrid, Spain, at which member states adopted the Madrid International Plan of Action on Aging, or we call it MIPA, which to date is still the international policy framework that guides member states across the world and in our region in the directions to take to safeguard and respect the rights of older persons, but also to adapt our societies to the challenges of population aging, to prepare in time for this not to become a burden, but an opportunity for all of us. Because let's not forget, longevity and the transformation that we are experiencing is a cause for celebration. Very often we portray it as a burden, as costly to societies, that we have a growing number of older people living a longer life, but it is really something we should all celebrate and prepare for, so that it doesn't become a burden. And this is why policy at all levels is so important. I also put on the slide just a few more recent initiatives that have happened. There was in 2012 the European Year of Active Aging Solidarity between Generations, and most recently we have at the General Assembly called for a United Nations Decade of Healthy Aging from 2021 to 2030, really to promote healthy aging across the world and to combat ageism. That is also a global campaign that was recently launched. Now, we are just, we will hear later on from colleagues more about the data, the research, the facts, but I just wanted to show you very briefly, and I'm not going to go into detail, but I think you can see the shape. The big orange and green, and the shaded lighter color behind, which shows you that over time between 2000 and 2020, the population structure has already noticeably changed. So you have a growing proportion of older people and a falling proportion of youth following behind. And you see this even more impressively in the 4 population periods that depict the years 1950 to 2000, 2024, and 2050, where you can see really a clear change in age structure from a large youth population and few older people at the top to a reducing number of youth and children and a growing number of older people. And that transformation is not a surprise. That was already foreseeable half a century ago, which is also the reason why that first World Assembly of Aging was called for. And we see what's happening, and we see how societies will change, the demographic structure will change over the decades to come. And it's now that we need to act to prepare for our own old age, our societies and communities, for ourselves, for our children later on. Now, just a very quick one to show you where Lithuania lies in that progression. The blue line on top is the European Union average, the darker line at the bottom, the UNECE average, and you can see the demographic transition that is happening in your country here is very much similar to all of the other countries in the region. This is really a demographic transition that we're collectively going through across countries. So today already in Lithuania we have about 1 in 5 people over the age of 65, and over the next few decades, until year 2050, this will be 1 in every 4, more than 1 in every 4 persons. So it's really a relatively short period of time in which we will see a significant change. Now, I would like to speak a little bit about MIPA in particular, as this is the main policy framework that we're still working on, and as was mentioned in the introduction, this is also where of course, the regional commission I work for and my own work very much lies today, which is to help implement MIPA and monitor progress over time. The MIPA really set a comprehensive agenda for aging policy for the 21st century with 3 priority areas: older persons and development, advancing health and well-being into old age, and ensuring enabling and supportive environments. And just to say that in comparison to the first international plan 20 years before that, there was a bit of a paradigm shift from a more humanitarian focus on our responsibility towards a growing number of older people and meeting their needs, to recognizing that we don't only need to meet their needs, but we need to recognize their valuable contributions towards society, towards development. So it is really about both meeting needs and enabling contributions, and that's very much where the concept of age-friendly communities also goes. It's participation, contribution, continuing life with purpose and fulfillment. And of course, health and well-being, independent living are key to this. But also, in order to enable contributions, the third pillar of ensuring enabling and supportive environments is all the more important here, because we're creating the foundation for this to happen. And I have, and I don't know if we have time, let me just, I chose a few quotes that I think describe these different elements very well, and maybe I just read them to you under each of these big pillars. And these are quotes from the Madrid International Plan of Action. Older persons must be full participants in the development process and also share in its benefits. No individual should be denied the opportunity to benefit from development. So this is also really the call to combat discrimination and ageism. And health and well-being into old age is both our own responsibility across life, but of course governments at national and local levels also can play a big part by having access to health services and health promotion to help us. So to reach old age in good health and well-being requires individual efforts throughout life and an environment within which such efforts can succeed. And the responsibility of individuals is to maintain a healthy lifestyle. The responsibility of government is to create a supportive environment that enables the advancement of health and well-being into old age. Access to health services, but also preventive measures. And finally, for the enabling and supportive environments, whatever the circumstances of older persons, all are entitled to live in an environment that enhances their capabilities. While some older persons need a high level of physical support and care, the majority are willing and capable of continuing to be active and productive, including through voluntary activities. And policies are required that empower older persons and support their contribution to society. So again, as I mentioned before, there's a very strong emphasis on empowerment. And after the MIPA was adopted in 2002, countries in the UNECE region met in Berlin to develop or adapt that global framework to the region, because of course the countries in this region face different challenges and have different opportunities compared to other regions in the world. And so they translated the MIPA objectives into 10 commitments that really highlighted the need for mainstreaming aging across policy areas, but also really specifically set objectives for the integration and participation of older people, equitable, sustainable economic growth in our region, social protection, opportunities in the labor market, responsive labor markets to demographic change, lifelong learning, quality of life and independent living, but also a gender-sensitive approach to that, because women and men age very differently. And a big emphasis was also put on the role of families and intergenerational and intragenerational solidarity, and of course regional cooperation to help implement the plan and monitor progress over time. And for this to work, and here we come a little bit to the nitty-gritty parts of governance, member states set up at the UNECE, at the United Nations Economic Commission for Europe, a standing working group on, at the time it was a working group on aging in 2008, which has still since become a standing working group in recognition of the long-term need to work together on aging issues. And this standing working group sets or provides an intergovernmental mechanism for cooperation on aging with three main objectives, really. One is to raise awareness on aging and the implications, a little bit like we're having this week here, you know, really to talk about it, to have dialogue, to exchange good practices, to learn from each other, to inspire each other. The second big objective is to develop guidelines, guidance, how to implement MIPA, how to address the challenges through policy, and how we can build capacity on this. And the third one is really to ensure that we regularly look at progress and look at what's not working so well and what the priorities are going forward. And here, just a very quick overview over time, how this has been working in the region. Every 5 years, member states report on progress. You can also, if you're interested, look at Lithuania's progress reports, which are available on the UNECE website. And this collective reporting and reviewing and appraisal of progress has each time culminated in a ministerial conference on aging, where political representatives of all member states at ministerial level come together to set the agenda and the priorities for the next 5 years. So it's 5-year cycles. I mentioned the regional implementation strategy was adopted in Berlin in 2002. Then periodic reviews took place in Lyon, Spain, Vienna, Austria, Lisbon, Portugal, and most recently in Rome in 2022. And we're now in the 5th implementation cycle, halfway through, so we'll soon already start to look into reviewing progress again. Now, as I mentioned just now, while MIPA and the regional implementation strategy provide the big picture, the big direction, the strategic direction, there are in each 5-year cycle priorities that are highlighted. And for our current cycle, as highlighted by the Rome Ministerial Declaration, the priorities are to promote active and healthy aging throughout life, ensure access to long-term care, very important one, and support for the families and carers, and mainstream aging for a society for all ages. And this really now brings us to age-friendly communities, because really mainstreaming aging is about integrating aging across all policy fields. So that's the horizontal mainstreaming, which is represented, you can't really see it, but you get a sense, I think, of just the broad example of policy fields through which we can tackle aging across horizontally, but of course also vertically. from the international framework that we just heard about to national policy, subnational policy at the regional level, and down to the local communities. And I think we all appreciate that what really matters is the action that happens right there where you live, in your village, in your city, in your area. So we need to make sure that the good policies that are brought underway at national level really are, demonstrated, are showing their result at the local level. Now, from now, a few slides on age-friendly cities and communities to really set the scene for the discussion afterwards. And here I'm grateful to my colleagues at WHO for slides to share with you today. And as was mentioned in the introduction, it's a topic very close to my own heart because I worked on setting up this network back in 2012 to 2016 when it was still very small with about 35 communities. And it has grown significantly since because the idea, the model of age-friendly communities is so compelling. It really is, it got launched, if you like, with a WHO coordinated project in the 2000s that culminated in the Age-Friendly Cities Guide, published in 2008, based on research with older people across 33 cities across the world, proposing a model, really saying what we need is communities that are physically accessible public space, to enable participation, accessible homes, accessible transport to enable people to go from A to B, but also socially inclusive, respect for older people, opportunities for participation both in employment, but also just having fun, as we heard several times already today. Opportunities for mingling, getting together, building those really important social connections that you lose when you stop working, when you lose the connection to the labor market. You need to have something that comes after that also is fulfilling and gets you out and about. And the network that was set up really brings together communities across the world that are committed to creating those communities. And WHO provides a club, if you like, that you can join, that local communities can join with the commitment by the highest political level, the mayor, to follow a process that is outlined here, which is based on the meaningful engagement of older people. Through a participatory approach, bring people together, but also local actors, local businesses, local associations, service providers, to think about what it is that is needed to make the community more age-friendly, engage with people, understand what the issues are, then plan strategically, implement those actions through a local plan, for example, and then also regularly evaluate. But a network wouldn't be a network if it wasn't about also sharing the good practices that you develop, to learn from each other, that not everyone has to reinvent the wheel. And this is a slide that just shows you that the network is really global with over 1,700 members across 53 countries today. And there is a portal, Age-Friendly World, on which you can find out about good practices about the communities that are members of that network. Just put in Age-Friendly World in Google and you will come to it. Who can join? As I said, any city and community with the political commitment to follow this process that I just outlined. And this is also very important and comes back to the idea of mainstreaming vertically. It is very helpful if there are local networks, either in the region or at national level, that bring together communities within a country. Because of course it's much easier to inspire each other, exchange and learn from each other if you don't have to travel across the world than if you speak the same language. So WHO has recently worked on developing some resources and guidance for such national programs to be set up that are available for anyone who's interested to learn more, really. And I'm aware of time, so I'm just going through this very quickly, but basically, you can find more information on the network and all of the resources and toolkits that are available for communities to develop age-friendly cities and communities on the WHO website. And really, all of this is with the aim to create age-friendly communities that enable us to age well in a place that is right for us, for older people, to continue throughout life, to develop personally, to feel included, to be part of the community, to contribute to our communities, and enjoy independence and good health as long as possible, but also to get the support needed when that is no longer possible. And I would like to close my short or longer remarks with a quote from Kofi Annan, that comes back to the Second World Assembly on Aging, which is, each and every one of us, young and old, has a role to play in promoting solidarity between generations, in combating discrimination against older people, and in building a future of security, opportunity, and dignity for people of all ages. So I wish you all, us all, a good discussion on how to do this, and lots of inspiration from the speakers. Thank you very much for your attention.